I heard my mother tell my brother to change the locks on my apartment while I was cutting my own birthday cake. The knife had just reached the cardboard circle beneath the frosting when Mom leaned toward Eric. She did not look at me. She kept her smile aimed at Aunt Linda, who was holding up her phone and telling everyone to move closer. "Use the spare key," Mom whispered. "Change her locks now." I stopped pressing the knife down, only for a second. The room was noisy enough that I could have pretended I had misheard her. Someone was laughing near the coffee urn. My cousin's youngest boy was dragging a balloon along the carpet by its ribbon. The overhead lights in the condo clubhouse made every silver decoration look cheap and bright. Eric looked at Mom. Then he looked at me, not directly. His eyes landed somewhere near my shoulder, as if the wall behind me had become interesting. Mom added something I could not hear. Eric stood. He did not take his coat from the back of the chair. That was the part I remembered most clearly afterward. It was January, and the temperature had dropped below freezing before sunset. He left without his coat, which meant he expected to be back quickly. He reached for his truck keys. I could have said his name. I could have put down the knife and asked Mom to repeat herself in front of everyone. I could have walked over and taken the spare key from his hand. Instead, I cut the first slice too narrow. The frosting pulled away from the side, leaving a streak of white icing on the blade. Aunt Linda lowered her phone and asked if I wanted her to take over. "I've got it," I said. My voice sounded normal. That frightened me more than if it had shaken. Eric moved toward the door. Mom shifted sideways to let him pass. She did not glance after him. I watched him leave through the reflection in the dark window. There were 22 people in the room, most of them related to me. They had brought cards, flowers, a bottle of wine, and a cake with my name spelled correctly. They were waiting for plates, so I kept cutting. I told myself I was frozen. That was true. I also told myself I needed to know whether Eric would actually do it. That was true too, and it was harder to admit. Our mother had been telling us what family emergencies required since we were children. She decided when privacy became selfishness, when inconvenience became sacrifice, and when another person's needs was serious enough to erase your right to say no. Eric had been separated from his wife for 3 months. His temporary arrangement with a coworker was ending. He had his 10-year-old daughter, Lily, several nights each week. Mom had mentioned his housing problem more than once. She had also mentioned my second bedroom. I had said no, not dramatically, not angrily. I had said I worked from home, used that room every weekday, and did not want anyone moving into my apartment. Mom had treated that answer as the beginning of a discussion. I had treated it as the end. Apparently, one of us had been mistaken. 35 candles would have set off the alarm, my cousin Mark said when I handed him a plate. He laughed at his own joke. I smiled, because that was what the moment required. Across the room, Mom began pouring coffee. She looked calm, not relieved, not anxious. Calm in the way she looked after making a decision she believed everyone else would eventually accept. I kept checking the door. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I handed out cake, opened 2 cards, and listened to Aunt Linda tell me I had my grandmother's hands. I did not hear most of what anyone said. I kept seeing Eric's coat on the chair. At one point, I imagined him sitting in his truck, thinking better of it. Then I imagined him at my apartment door. I had given Mom the spare key 2 years earlier after I locked myself out during a thunderstorm. I remembered standing under the building's awning while she drove over, proud of herself for being useful. "See," she had said, "this is why family needs access." I had laughed then. Now I wondered whether Eric had already used the key, whether he had opened my door, whether he had walked through my living room with his tool bag, whether he had seen my coffee cup in the sink and my slippers beside the couch and understood, even for 1 second, that he was not entering an empty room. Aunt Linda asked me to make a wish. Everyone began singing again because someone had forgotten to record the first time. I stood behind the cake with the knife still in my hand. I did not make a wish. I watched the door. Eric returned almost exactly an hour after he left. The cold had reached him. His ears were red, and he rubbed his hands together once after the door closed behind him. But his face was pale, not the ordinary washed-out look people get after coming in from winter. He looked as if he had stood up too fast and never recovered.
He stayed near the entrance for several seconds. Mom saw him. Her eyes went to his right hand.
His fingers closed around something inside his jacket pocket. Then he walked past her and sat beside the coat he had left behind. He did not put it on. He did not take a plate. He did not look at me. I was opening a card from one of Mom's neighbors. There was a watercolor bird on the front and a $20 bill inside. "Very nice," Mom said from behind my shoulder. I folded the card closed. Eric stared at the carpet. There was gray dust on the side of his thumb and a thin red mark across one knuckle. I noticed because I was looking for anything that might tell me what he had done without forcing me to ask. I hated that part of myself. I wanted the truth, but I wanted it to arrive without requiring me to step into the center of the room and demand it.
People began leaving around 8:30. The first wave went quickly. Coats came off hooks. Leftover cake was wrapped in foil. Someone asked who wanted the balloons. Eric remained seated.
Mom moved through the room with a trash bag, collecting cups. She never asked him what happened. That told me they had some understanding between them. It did not tell me whether he had followed it. When Mark came over to say goodnight, he shook Eric's shoulder. "You look rough. Headache," Eric said. It was the first word I had heard from him since he returned. His voice was low and uneven. I waited. He still did not look at me. After the last guest left, Aunt Linda stood near the door and asked Mom if she wanted help cleaning. "We're fine," Mom said. Aunt Linda looked around at the three of us.
Then she left. The room became much larger without everyone in it. Mom tied the trash bag and placed it beside the kitchenette. I set the last stack of plates on the counter.
"Give me my spare key," I said. Mom wiped a crumb from the table with one finger. "Eric has it." I looked at him. He kept his eyes on the floor. "Then give it to me." His hand moved toward his pocket, but stopped. Mom stepped between us without making it look like she had.
"Before you get upset," she said, "you should understand what your brother is dealing with. I understand he has my key. He and Lily have nowhere appropriate to stay after tomorrow."
Eric's jaw tightened. I waited for him to correct her. He did not. "That doesn't answer me. You have an entire room you barely use. I work in it every day." "You have a desk in it. I work at the desk." Mom let out a breath through her nose, the way she did when she believed someone was being deliberately difficult. "It's temporary." I looked at Eric again. His face had not recovered its color. "What did you do?" He stood so quickly that the chair legs scraped the floor. "Not here. We're the only people here." He picked up his coat. His hand was shaking slightly as he pushed one arm into the sleeve. "Mom said he did what needed to be done. I felt something move in my chest. Not anger yet. Something colder. What needed to be done?" "You wouldn't have agreed if we asked again." "We?" Mom turned away and began folding the plastic tablecloth. Eric zipped his coat halfway. "I'll talk to you tomorrow."
"No." He finally looked at me, only for a moment. There was guilt in his face. I thought there was. I cannot say with certainty now. It may have been fear.
It may have been the exhaustion of a man who knew two people were waiting for him to become someone neither of them would forgive. "Eric," I said, "does my key still work?"
His mouth opened. Mom answered for him. "You can still get into your apartment." That was not what I had asked. I picked up my purse. Eric said my name.
I walked past him. Behind me, Mom said, "Do not turn this into something ugly." The sentence followed me out of the clubhouse and into the parking lot.
My apartment was about 20 minutes away. I drove there in 16. The first thing I noticed was the shine. My old deadbolt had been brass, dulled around the keyhole from years of use.
The one on my door was silver. For a few seconds, I stood in the hallway holding my key and looking at it. The building was quiet. Someone's television played behind the door across from mine. The elevator numbers changed as it moved between floors. I put my key into the new lock. It slid in halfway, then stopped. I tried again. My hand had begun to shake, and the key scraped the edge of the opening. The deadbolt had scratches around it. There was fresh dust along the doorframe and a small curl of wood on the carpet. I called Eric. He did not answer. I called again. On the third call, he picked up. "I'm coming," he said. No greeting, no question. "You changed it. I'm coming. Does Mom have a key?" He was silent long enough to answer me. "Eric." I said, "I'm coming." He ended the call. I sat on the floor outside my own apartment. That was one of the consequences of my decision at the party. I had wanted to see whether he would stop himself. By the time I got my answer, I was locked in a hallway with my birthday gifts in the trunk of my car. Eric arrived 12 minutes later. He carried no tool bag. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small silver key. He still would not meet my eyes. He opened the door. The smell inside was wrong. Not dramatically wrong. There was no smoke or chemical odor. It smelled like cardboard and cold air, as if the windows had been open and boxes had been moved. I stepped inside. My living room looked mostly the same. A cushion was on the floor. One of the dining chairs had been moved closer to the hallway. The lamp beside the sofa was unplugged. The second bedroom was different. My desk had been pushed against the wall at an angle. The monitor cables hung loose. My chair was turned sideways.
3 file boxes had been stacked near the closet, and a drawer in the small cabinet under the printer was open. Against the far wall sat 2 black duffel bags.
Beside them was Lily's purple sleeping bag. I knew it was hers because I had bought it for a school camping trip the year before. There were faded yellow stars printed across the fabric.
I stared at it. Eric stood behind me. How long were those here? He did not answer. I turned around. How long? Mom brought them over. When?
Earlier. Today? He nodded. You knew? Not until I got here. And then you changed the lock anyway. He looked at the floor.
I walked back into the living room. My body had begun doing small things without my permission. My hands opened and closed. My jaw hurt from clenching it.
I kept rubbing my thumb across the edge of my phone case. Give me every key. Eric took 1 key from his pocket and placed it on the dining table. There were 2. Where's the other one? He rubbed the red mark across his knuckle. Mom has it. I laughed once. It did not sound like laughter. You changed the lock on my apartment and gave Mom a key. She bought the lock. I don't care who bought it. She said you'd agreed to let us stay for a few weeks. Did I tell you that? No. Did I text you? No. Did I call? No. I pointed toward the purple sleeping bag. You walked in here. You saw my office. You saw my things. You moved them. And you still believed I agreed? I didn't say I believed her. The sentence made the room go very still. What did you say? He looked toward the door. I said I didn't know. But you changed it. He rubbed his face. I had nowhere else lined up. There it was, though not as cleanly as I had expected. Not an excuse that made sense. Not an apology. A need. His need. I had imagined that if I stayed silent long enough, he would reveal whether he loved me more than he wanted the room.
What I had not admitted was that I was asking a desperate man to pass a test he did not know he was taking. That did not make what he had done less wrong.
It made my own choice harder to describe as innocent. Why were you pale when you came back? I asked. His face changed. Not much. His shoulders tightened. Nothing. Something happened here. I said we'd talk tomorrow. You are in my apartment now. He reached for his keys. I shouldn't have done it. That isn't an answer. I know. He left before I could stop him. I did not follow. I stood in the doorway of the second bedroom and looked at the sleeping bag. Then I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. Are you at the apartment? You moved his things in before my party. I moved 2 bags. You went into my office. It is a bedroom. It is my office, which can be changed back. I looked at the monitor cable lying beneath the desk. Did you open my files? I moved boxes. You opened the cabinet. I was making space for someone I told you was not moving in. Mom's voice hardened.
Lily is a child. I know who Lily is, then act like it. I ended the call. 10 seconds later, she called back. I did not answer.
I slept with a dining chair wedged beneath the front doorknob. The deadbolt still worked, but Mom had the other key. The chair would not have stopped someone determined to come in. I knew that. It made enough noise when I tested it that I kept it there anyway. I tried to restore the office before bed. One monitor would not turn on because its power cord was missing. I found the cord 40 minutes later in a box that usually held tax records. 2 folders had been bent. My router had been unplugged and placed behind a stack of printer paper. I opened 3 boxes looking for a client notebook and found birthday wrapping paper, an old heating pad, and a set of curtains I had forgotten I owned. I could not find the notebook. At midnight, I called Eric. He answered with a tired, "What? Did you move a black notebook? No. Did Mom? I don't know." "What did you move?" "The desk, some boxes, that cabinet. You opened it. I pulled it. The drawer is open. I don't know. His answers came too quickly. I sat on the floor beside the desk. Where is the old lock? In my truck. Do not throw it away. I wasn't going to. Do not give it to Mom. I said I wasn't. You gave her the new key. He went quiet. I heard a television in the background and then a woman's voice. He was still staying with his coworker and the coworker's wife. Their arrangement ended Monday morning. Eric, I said, when you got here, were the bags already in the room? Yes. The sleeping bag too? Yes. How did Mom get them here? She got them from the storage locker before the party, I guess. You guess? I didn't ask what time. On the floor beside the lock packaging, I noticed a folded receipt. The date was Friday. I picked it up. She bought the deadbolt yesterday. He did not answer.
This wasn't something she decided during the party. No. You knew when you got here. I knew she'd bought a lock when I got there.
I didn't know she'd already moved the bags. Why replace mine at all? She already had my spare. He stared at the floor.
She said if she handed me your spare, you'd take it back before I could move anything in. The new lock came with 2 keys.
She had already kept one and told me to keep the other until she talked you around. I felt my grip tighten around the receipt.
Seth's locking me out was part of talking me around. She said it would only be long enough to make you listen. But you stayed, Mara. You stayed.
His voice rose. I had to be out of Greg's place Monday morning, and I had to pick Lily up Tuesday. The extended stay place wanted more than I had in checking. The apartment I applied for wasn't ready. Mom said once our things were inside, you'd complain and then calm down. I looked at the purple sleeping bag. And that was enough?
No. Then what was enough? He did not answer. Maybe he could not. Maybe he did not want to hear himself say that the room was worth risking our relationship. Maybe he was waiting for me to supply a kinder explanation. I need the other key, I said. I'll get it. Tonight. Mom's asleep. It is not even 1 a.m. That is asleep for her. I closed my eyes. Get it. I'll do it tomorrow. You changed my lock tonight. I know. That was as far as we got. After the call, I found the building's after-hours maintenance number taped inside the kitchen cabinet. The man who answered sounded as if I had woken him. I explained that someone had replaced my deadbolt without authorization. Are you currently locked out? He asked. No. I have 1 key. Is the door secured? I think so. Any damage to the frame? I don't know. He paused. Take pictures. Don't remove anything tonight. The office will have to verify the lease Monday. My mother has another key. Is she on the lease? No. Then tell the office when it opens. Can you change it now? Not if you're inside and the door is secured. Emergency service is for lockouts, broken doors, water, fire, that sort of thing. He gave me his name. I wrote it on the back of the lock receipt. Later, I lost the receipt beneath a pile of papers and had to call the number again because I could not remember his name. The same man answered. He sounded less patient the second time. I took 6 photographs of the lock and 2 of the office. In the morning, I realized I had not photographed the inside plate or the screws. I took more. I slept for perhaps an hour. Every time someone walked down the hallway, I sat up. At 7, Mom called. I let it ring. At 7:15, she sent a message. You are making Eric feel like a criminal when he is trying to care for his daughter. At 7:20, another message arrived. No one is taking your apartment. I looked at the second bedroom. The desk was against the wall. Lily's sleeping bag lay beneath the window. My old life had not been taken. It had been moved aside. Mom called 11 times on Sunday. I answered the 8th. You need to stop ignoring me, she said. I need my key. Eric will take care of it. He already took care of enough. She made a sound that was almost a sigh. You live alone. That is not permission. You have 2 bedrooms. That is not permission. You are 35 years old, Mara. Must everything be phrased exactly the way you want before you understand what your family needs? I looked at the chair under the doorknob. You used my spare key. For an emergency. You created the emergency. Eric's housing situation is not something I created. You moved his things into my apartment. 2 bags. And his daughter's sleeping bag. She needs a safe place to sleep. I stared at the faded yellow stars. For a second, I saw Lily at 8 years old, standing in my kitchen in wet socks after a snowstorm. She had slept on my couch that night because the roads were bad. I had made pancakes in the morning. Mom knew exactly what memory she was using.
She is not moving in here, I said. Then where should she go?
That is not mine to solve. The words came out harsher than I intended. Mom seized them. I hope you hear yourself. I almost began explaining. I almost told her about my work equipment, the lease, the lack of space, the way I had stopped sleeping the moment I saw the new lock. Instead, I said, "Bring me the key." She ended the call. Eric arrived after lunch. He knocked. That mattered more than I wanted it to. I moved the chair and opened the door. He stood in the hallway with both hands in his coat pockets. "Can I come in?" "You already did." He flinched. I stepped aside. He went straight to the second bedroom. He looked at the bags but did not touch them. "I came to get some clothes," he said. "Take all of it. I don't have anywhere to put it yet." "Then put it in your truck." "It's freezing. It was freezing last night when you left your coat at the party." He looked at me then. Not for long. I sat in the desk chair. One wheel caught on a cable and jerked sideways. "Tell me why you came back pale." His shoulders dropped. "Mara, you have avoided me since you returned. I said I was sorry. You said you shouldn't have done it. That is not the same thing." He leaned against the wall. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "Lily called. I waited. She was at Rachel's. Mom had told her we might be staying here." "Might?" "She told her you said yes." My hands went cold. "What did Lily say?" "She wanted to thank you." The room seemed to narrow around the sleeping bag. Eric looked toward it. "She asked if she could bring the lamp from her bedroom, the one with the horses. She asked if you still had the blue towels because she liked those better than the white ones." I remembered the blue towels. I had stopped using them because one had a bleach mark near the edge. "What did you tell her?" "I told her we were still working it out." "You knew I hadn't agreed." "Yes, you knew before you finished the lock." He shut his eyes. "Yes." There was no relief in hearing it. I had imagined a discovery at the apartment that would make his behavior easier to divide. Something Mom had hidden from him. Something he had uncovered too late. Instead, he had discovered the truth while there was still time to stop. "Why did you finish?" He rubbed his palms against his jeans. "I don't know." "That isn't true." "I don't know how to say it." "Try." He stared at the floor. "The lock was already off. You took it off, I know." I had the new one in my hand. Mom was calling. Lily was asking where she would sleep. I kept thinking it was for a few weeks, and I would get over it. He did not deny it. "Mom said you always say no first." "I said no once." "I know. Did you?" He picked up one duffel bag. I knew enough. That was the most honest thing he said that day. Not enough to explain him. Enough to make me stop waiting for a cleaner answer. I stood. "You are not staying here. I know. Lily is not staying here. I know. Mom is not keeping that key. I said I'll get it." "When?" He looked at his phone. "She's at church. Then go after." "Mara, I have to check out of Greg's place in the morning." "I still have to pick Lily up Tuesday. That does not give you my apartment." "I didn't say it did. You changed the lock." He put the bag down again. "I know what I did. I was not sure he did. Or perhaps he knew and had not decided whether knowing required him to give up the room." He left with one duffel bag. The second remained against the wall. The sleeping bag remained beneath the window. I had a 9 o'clock video meeting on Monday. At 8:40, my second monitor still would not connect. My desk chair was jammed against the baseboard, and I could not find the notebook I used for weekly review calls. I joined from my laptop at the kitchen table. My camera showed the wall behind me and half of a birthday balloon I had brought home without realizing it. The silver balloon drifted into view whenever the heat came on. At 9:12, my supervisor asked a question about numbers I had prepared Friday. I knew the answer. I could not find the page. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm having an issue at home." It was not a lie. It was also the kind of sentence people use when they do not want to invite another question. After the meeting, I used 4 hours of personal leave. The leasing office opened at 10. A woman named Denise came upstairs with a maintenance technician. She checked my identification and compared it with the lease on her tablet. Eric was not there. Mom did not answer my message about the key. Denise examined the deadbolt. "This isn't ours," she said. "I know." The technician loosened the interior plate and showed her the edge of the door frame. "Whoever installed it widened the holes. My brother does maintenance work." Denise looked at me. "He is not listed as an occupant." "No. Did you authorize the change?" "No." She typed something into the tablet.
The sound of her fingernail against the screen made me more nervous than it should have. "We can replace the cylinder today," she said. "I can't tell you yet whether there will be a charge or a lease notice. The manager has to review it. My mother has a key." "Once we replace the lock, that key won't work. Can you do it now? The technician has 2 emergency calls ahead of you. Late afternoon, most likely." The technician retightened the plate. "Don't use the deadbolt more than you need to," he said. "The stick is holding, but the screws aren't seated right. I wanted them to solve everything." I wanted Denise to say my mother had committed some official wrong, my brother had no claim, and I had done everything correctly. Instead, she told me what they could do. They could verify the lease. They could replace unauthorized hardware. They could review damage. They could not decide what my brother had believed. They could not make him give up the room. After they left, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a message to the family group chat. I wrote that Mom had entered my apartment without permission.
I wrote that Eric had changed the lock. I wrote that anyone who supported them was supporting theft. I read the message 3 times. Then I deleted it.
It was not because the facts were wrong. It was because sending it would turn the next part into a vote.
Mom was strongest when every private boundary became a public question of who deserved what. I called Eric. "I need you here before maintenance comes. I'm looking at a motel." "Come here first. I have to return Greg's garage remote. Then come after." "What is this about?" "The keys, the bags, the lock," he sighed. "I already said I would help fix it." "That is not what I asked. What are you asking?" I looked at the second bedroom. I knew then. Not every word, not in the calm, organized way I would later remember it, but I knew the decision could not remain inside me. "You need to choose what you are doing," I said.
"With what?" "With my apartment." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'll be there." Eric arrived at 3:30. The maintenance technician was scheduled sometime after 4.
I had placed my key to the new deadbolt on the dining table. Eric noticed it when he walked in. "What's that? You know what it is."
He took off his coat but did not sit. I pointed toward the second bedroom. "If you are not moving in, take everything out." "I am not moving in."
"Then take everything. I can't leave Lily's things in the truck overnight. Then find somewhere else." His face tightened. "You make it sound simple."
"I do not think it is simple. You have somewhere to sleep." "Yes. You have no idea what the extended stay place costs." "No, I don't." "I'm supposed to pick Lily up tomorrow. I know. And you're telling me to put her sleeping bag in a truck. I am telling you she is not sleeping here."
He walked to the window. For several seconds, I thought he might leave. That was how arguments usually ended in our family. One person walked out. Mom later explained what they had meant. The original issue became rude behavior. I stood near the table. "Mom still has the other key. I'll get it. You said that Saturday. She won't give it back."
"Then decide what that means." He turned around. "What do you want me to do? Wrestle it out of her hand?" "No, call the police on Mom?"
"No. Then what?" "I want you to tell her you are not staying here. I want you to take back the key she has."
"I want you to give both keys to maintenance. I want you to take your things out of my office. And I want you to tell Lily I never said yes." His expression changed at Lily's name. "I already told her it might not happen. That is not the truth. She's 10. "Then tell her in a way a 10-year-old can understand." He stared at the key on the table. "What happens after I do all that?" I knew what he meant. He wanted to know whether giving up the room would restore him as my brother. "I don't know," I said. He looked angry. Not loud, not violent. Hurt in a way that made him seem younger. "So I do everything you want, and you still might not forgive me. This isn't a trade. Feels like one." "It isn't." He sat in the dining chair. For a moment I saw how tired he was. There were dark circles beneath his eyes. His coat sleeve had a tear near the cuff. One shoelace was knotted twice because it had broken. None of that made the lock mine again. None of it made him a monster either. "I can stay 3 nights, he said. "No, 1 night. No, Lily could take the bed. I'd sleep on the floor. No." "You wouldn't even be giving up your room." I looked at him. "My desk is against the wall because you moved it." He rubbed his forehead. "I know." "You still think this is about how much space I can spare. What else is it about?" "You deciding that your need gave you the right to enter my home." "I didn't decide that. You changed the lock." He stood. "I'm going to get the key." He lifted one duffel bag and carried it into the hallway. Then he went back for a small plastic bin of Lily's clothes. He left the sleeping bag. He stopped beside it. I'll come back.
I did not know whether he meant for the sleeping bag or for the key. He left. At 4:10, the technician called to say he was on his way.
At 4:20, Eric had not returned. At 4:25, Mom called, I answered. What did you say to him? I told him to return my key.
You are forcing him to choose between his mother and his sister.
No.
I am making him choose whether he keeps using my apartment.
You have always been able to make everything sound reasonable. I did not know what to say to that. Her voice grew quieter. You will regret humiliating him.
No one is here. You know what I mean. I did. To Mom, being denied access was humiliation. Being told no by your own child was humiliation.
A private boundary was still an insult if she could feel it. I need the key, I said. She ended the call. The technician knocked at 4:38. Eric was not with him. The technician had removed the interior plate when the elevator doors opened. Eric stepped out, carrying Lily's sleeping bag under one arm. In his other hand was the second silver key. He looked at the open lock, then at me. Got it, he said. That was all. No speech, no report of what Mom had said. He placed the key beside mine on the dining table. The technician asked, These are both copies? Yes, Eric said. You installed this? Eric nodded. The technician looked at the holes in the doorframe. What did you use? A cordless drill. Bit was too large. I know. The technician handed him a small tray for the screws. Eric held it without being asked twice. I stood near the kitchen. The scene was more ordinary than the moment deserved. A man in work boots removed a lock. Another man held screws. A radio played softly from the tool bag on the floor. That was how Mom's power began to break. Not with anyone admitting she had been wrong. With the key no longer working, Eric carried the remaining duffel bag into the hallway. Then he came back for the plastic bin and a cardboard box Mom had packed with sheets. He paused beside my desk. I can reconnect this. I wanted to tell him not to touch anything else. Instead, I stepped back. He moved the desk away from the wall and found the missing notebook wedged behind it. The cover was bent. He handed it to me. I didn't see it fall. I took it. Okay. He plugged in the monitor and router. One cable had been pinched beneath a leg of the desk. He replaced it with a spare from his truck. The technician installed the building-approved cylinder after Denise returned to verify the lock change. She gave me 2 keys in a sealed envelope and asked me to sign a form acknowledging receipt. Eric watched. He had no part in that exchange. When the technician finished, he placed the unauthorized deadbolt and its keys in a paper bag. Do you want this? He asked Denise. She shook her head. Tenant can keep it. We photographed the damage. Eric said, I'll pay whatever the repair charge is. Denise looked at me rather than him. The account is in Mrs. Carter's name. Any billing goes to her. What happens between you two is separate. I understand, he said. I was not sure he had before. After they left, Eric sat on the edge of the sofa. I booked a room. For how long? A week. Where? The extended stay place near the highway. I knew the one. Brown brick outdoor entrances, vending machines, behind metal cages. Lily is staying there? For 2 nights, then Rachel has her. He rubbed the back of his neck. I told her you never said yes. What did she say? She asked if you were mad at her. I looked down at the notebook in my hands. What did you tell her? That you weren't. That was true. I was not angry at Lily. I was angry that she had been made part of the plan before anyone asked me. I told her Grandma got ahead of herself, he said. Is that what happened? He looked at me. No. I waited. He did not continue. For once, I let the silence remain incomplete. He stood. I'm going to take this stuff to the motel. He gathered the bags. At the door, he turned around. I should have stopped when Lily called. Yes. I knew you hadn't agreed. Yes. I kept thinking if I finished it, Mom would handle you. I felt the words before I understood them. Handle me. That's not. I mean, she said she would explain. She would explain my apartment to me. He looked ashamed. I believed that part. I did not know whether shame would last after the motel bill arrived. I'm sorry, he said. The apology did not solve anything, but he left with his belongings. He did not ask for a key. The leasing office emailed me on Thursday. They charged me $280 for the damaged doorframe and unauthorized hardware. The notice also warned that any future lock alteration could be treated as a lease violation. I read this message 3 times before forwarding it to Eric. He replied 20 minutes later.
I'll cover it. Friday, okay? He sent the money Friday morning. No argument. No message asking me to acknowledge what it cost him.
That same week, I learned the difference between getting my apartment back and feeling safe inside it. The new key worked. The deadbolt was solid. Mom could not enter. Still, I checked the lock before bed. Then I checked it again after brushing my teeth. Once, at 2 in the morning, I woke because someone dropped something in the hallway. I stood behind the door with my phone in my hand until I heard the elevator close. At work, I explained the missed half day as a family issue. My supervisor nodded and asked whether it was resolved. Yes, I said. I thought it was. Then I came home and found myself examining the door frame. The office took longer to put back together than it should have. The desk never sat quite right after Eric moved it. One leg rocked unless I placed a folded piece of cardboard beneath it. I left the cardboard there. Mom did not call for 4 days. Instead, Aunt Linda called. She began with weather. Then she asked whether Eric and Lily had found somewhere safe. I think so. Your mother is worried. I know. She says there was some misunderstanding about your extra room. There was no misunderstanding. Aunt Linda was quiet. You know how your mother gets when she thinks she is helping. Yes, she shouldn't have changed the lock.
She didn't. Eric did. Well, she shouldn't have asked him. She also moved his things into my apartment. Another pause. I didn't know that. I believed her. That was how Mom told stories, not by inventing every detail. By choosing the point at which the story began. In her version, it began when I refused to let Lily stay.
In mine, it began at the cake. In Eric's, perhaps it began months earlier, when his marriage failed and he started sleeping in borrowed rooms. None of those beginnings made the others disappear.
The following Sunday, Mom hosted dinner. I was not invited. I knew because Aunt Linda mentioned it before realizing I had not been told. Eric was invited. He did not go.
He did not call me to announce that decision. I learned from Lily 2 days later when she sent me a picture of a drawing she had made at the motel. There were 3 square buildings under a purple sky. One had a sign that said hotel. One had a tiny horse in the window. Dad said Grandma was mad at him too, she wrote.
I stared at the message. I did not ask Lily what Mom had said. I replied that I liked the horse. Eric found an apartment at the end of the 2nd week. It was smaller than the place he had shared with his wife and farther from Lily's school. He sent me the address only because one of my birthday gifts had ended up in his truck. When he returned it, he stayed in the hallway. He handed me the gift bag and said, "I think this is yours." It contained a candle and a pair of wool socks from Aunt Linda. Thanks. He glanced at the door. Lock looks okay. It is. He nodded. Neither of us mentioned the motel bill. Neither of us mentioned Mom. Before he left, he said, "Lily wants to see you. I want to see her too. We can meet somewhere." The old arrangement would have been for him to bring her over without asking because we were family. Now he waited. Saturday afternoon, I said. The diner near the park. Okay. It was not forgiveness. It was a plan. A month after my birthday, the apartment looked almost the way it had before. The 2nd bedroom was an office again. The monitor worked. The router sat where it belonged. The file boxes were stacked beneath the window. I never found the exact place for the desk. Before Eric moved it, the left corner had lined up with the seam in the carpet. Afterward, one leg always seemed slightly off. I could have measured it. I never did. There was a small gouge in the doorframe where the drill bit had slipped. The maintenance technician had filled it, but the paint did not match perfectly. In daylight, the mark looked like a pale comma beside the deadbolt. Mom still did not have a key. For 2 weeks, no one did. Then I locked myself out in the laundry room because I had carried the wrong ring downstairs. I stood in the hallway in slippers and laughed until I almost cried. The leasing office let me in after checking my identification. The next day, I asked Denise about emergency key procedures. She explained that the building could keep an authorized contact on file but would not hand out keys without verification. I chose my friend Karen. It took me another week to give her the spare. I almost changed my mind twice. Karen did not tell me I was being dramatic. She put the key in a labeled envelope and locked it in the small safe in her home office. "I'll forget the code before I misuse the key," she said. That helped. Mom and I spoke occasionally. The calls were short. She asked about work, weather, and whether I had received a card from Aunt Linda. She did not apologize for entering my apartment. Once, she said, "I hope someday you understand that I was trying to keep a child from suffering." I did not answer. There was nothing I could say that would not return us to the old argument about whose need counted more, so I changed the subject. That was not reconciliation. It was the size of relationship I could manage without handing her another way into my life. Eric paid the door charge in full. He found a 2-bedroom apartment above a pharmacy. The stairs were narrow, the kitchen cabinets were old, and Lily's room had enough space for the horse lamp. When I visited for the first time, I waited until he opened the door. He noticed. I noticed him noticing. Neither of us said anything. He had helped restore my apartment. He had returned the key. He had given up the free room and paid for the damage. He had also completed the lock after knowing I had never agreed. Both things remained true. I did not give him a spare key. I did not tell him I never would. Some decisions did not need to become declarations. One evening, he came by to return the old brass deadbolt. It had been in the back of his truck under a folded tarp. "I thought you might want it," he said. I held the lock in my hand. It was heavier than I remembered. The brass surface was scratched, and there was a dark ring where years of keys had worn it smooth. "I don't," I said. He nodded. "I can throw it out." "Please do." He placed it back in the paper bag. Before leaving, he stood just inside the doorway. "Can I ask you something?" I waited. "At the party, did you hear Mom tell me?" "Yes." His face changed. "You knew where I was going." "Yes. Why didn't you stop me?" The question had lived in the room from the beginning. I looked at the small mark beside the deadbolt. "I wanted to see if you would stop yourself." He lowered his eyes. "I didn't. No." He took that in. I could have added that I had been frozen, that there were people watching. That part of me could not believe the sentence I had heard. All of that was true. It was also true that I had let the test continue after I understood what it might cost. "I should have said something," I told him. He looked up. "So should I." That was as close as we came to dividing the blame fairly. There was no audience. No one forgave anyone on the spot. He left with the old lock. I closed the door behind him. Then I turned the deadbolt. The sound was ordinary, a solid metal click. I walked toward the kitchen. Halfway there, I stopped and went back to check it. The lock was secure. I rested my fingers against the pale screw mark in the frame. Then I checked the deadbolt once more.